that firm. It shows up here, and you can read his bio, and you can learn more about him. And so by associating this person with a greater brand, you then get this sort of multiple effect that helps the brand go up. And it's really sort of based on this concept of social proof, right? We see something that we admire, and we create an association, and by that person being an ambassador representing either your architecture firm or engineering firm or your surf brand, you associate good things with that particular brand. Another homework assignment for you, if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. Cialdini's classic called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. It talks all about this aspect of social proof. Because really, how many times have you heard this? People do business with people they know, and I would like to add, people that they know, like, and trust. And by having a brand ambassador out there that's writing and speaking, it gives your audience or prospective client the opportunity to experience them before they buy. And that's kind of the holy grail of professional services marketing, is that we have to sell the delivery of this future promise. And the only way we can do that effectively is if people trust us. And to give them this little nugget of something that you've written or something that you've been on stage to talk about allows them to then think more highly of you and trust you in order to hire you. So I recommend when I'm working with clients that they have an ambassador for each vertical market that they represent and each service. Here's an example. Clark Construction has this division called Clark Concrete. This is a big division. There are many people in it, but they have somebody who's sort of like the head of it who is right here to contact, and so you can call him or email him and find out more about that division. Arcadis has this guy, Rob, that you can contact as the brand ambassador for that particular service. So even if your organization, in terms of like org chart, isn't organized this way, and if you're a really small firm and you don't have the luxury, make your marketing person this brand ambassador. Just having somebody who's like a real person that you can associate with the company adds a lot in terms of humanizing your brand. This particular geographic market for Stantec is headed up by Rory, and it's, and so you can contact him. Guy Gensler has Lauren here, who you can contact, you can email, you can connect with her in email. What I love about this is that you get to read her bio, but then you can also read articles that she's written here on the right side. So vertical markets, the education market is strong for Clark Construction. You have a contact here. And then there's some other people you can get in contact with, and you can see about projects and other aspects within that particular market. Even if you're just like creating a contact page, which many of you have, rather than just make it a sort of very impersonal form, having an actual human being there. In this case, you can get in touch with Jennifer if for some reason your contact form gets filled out and you don't hear from her. And so it's just a nice humanizing touch by utilizing a brand ambassador. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about brand archetypes. These are universal themes, they're characters, they're timeless tropes that have worked throughout civilization, and they've sort of become trapped in our collective consciousness. If anybody's read any, like Joseph Campbell and Power of Myth, these are sort of the very classic things that have worked for centuries and will continue to work. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. So there's the hero, timeless. We've got the outlaw, which is like the O'Neill example I gave earlier. The helper, the jester, the innocent, the adventurer, and the sage. So these are like the most classic ones. So if your firm can sort of tap into an archetype such as this, then already people are going to be rooting for you because they know this archetype, and it's easy for them to get their head around of kind of what you're all about, right? So people like to put firms and people sort of into boxes, and maybe it's sort of a combination or a mashup of one or two of these that creates an entirely new archetype that works for your particular firm. So here's an example. Gotcha in the 80s wanted to sort of appeal to the more rebellious aspect of the surfing movement, and so they created this new division called the More For Division, or MCD, and they, all their graphics were like black and white and edgy, and they wanted to do that. Today you see this at Ruka. They're trying to sort of perceive themselves as that way. So they call their brand ambassadors advocates, but you can sort of tell by the photographs that these folks are trying to be a little bit against the grain and sort of that outlaw of the brand archetype. O'Neill has taken the archetype of the adventurer, right? So they've made surfing all about going out to exotic places, finding new waves, you know, charting new grounds. And I think that's a very interesting way, especially if you perceive your firm as particularly innovative, then you could take on this archetype of the adventurer. If you want to read a great book, whether you're into surfing or just corporate culture, Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, started that company he was a metalsmith and a rock climber. And he developed these amazing new pitons that he could stick into the rock and allow the firm to climb. And then he quickly realized that climbing clothing wasn't adequate. If you were on granite all day, your stuff would just get shredded. And he would create clothing that was more durable. And that led him to this incredible trip where we drove from Ventura, California, where the firm was founded, all the way down to Tierra del Fuego. And he stopped in Patagonia, he climbed, he surfed, he named the company after it. And so Patagonia takes on this archetype of two different things. One is the adventurer, but also this other archetype of the innocent. And they've really made an effort to utilize their business as an agent for social change. The ability to sort of make the environmental movement sexy, if you will, by creating great clothing. And let me give you an example of that. This is a quick video about how they're changing the industry of wetsuits.
It's as big a leap as they made in neoprene over 50 years, 60 years, and it's happening in 5.
Wetsuits out of plants, like really? Yeah, nothing worthwhile is easy.
200 material trials. Supply chain evaporated. Okay, we're going all in.
Consistency, pure profiles,
limiting viscosity,
content, lab tests, finally reach a point where, whoa, like, wow, something's changed here, and we've actually figured something out.
The history of ULEX for Patagonia started 10 years ago. 200 material trials to get to something that could be built into a wetsuit and put in the water. ULEX found that if they actually put latex from the Hevea tree through their process, they got an equally high-performing product than just neoprene. And the wetsuit's finish is actually releasing 80% less CO2 into the atmosphere than a traditional wetsuit. Everything's FSC certified. That FSC means there is no clear cutting. The workers that are harvesting the rubber have access to daycare, medical, all these things that FSC ensures. And then this year we're bringing forth fair trade at the factory. Be the world's first fair trade certified wetsuit and taking care of the people who are producing our products that we love. This year we really wanted to focus on the performance, working with the factory to really stabilize the material itself and make it stretch a lot better.
You can run as many lab tests as you want on the stretch, but every surfer knows until you get into that suit, that's when you just feel it right away. Tons of other improvements that really just go unnoticed. These small, minute changes really just complementing the experience. I can get excited about performance and stretch and design all day long, but at the end of the day, this isn't some proprietary thing we keep to ourselves. This is something that we open up to the whole world, really. That's the end goal, changing supply chain for everyone and making, this the new law.
Wetsuits were made a lot with petroleum, and they're really kind of changing the game. And so I think the takeaway here is that they've tapped into this archetype of being a little bit rebellious, but tapping into this innocence of like getting back to nature. And it seems to make sense, right? We're out there in the water, we're connected to nature, and why should we be harming the planet? It's giving us these waves. So yeah, tap into these, and I think your firm will benefit from these sort of added oomph that they've been around for so long and they're so classic. So here's some examples of firms doing this. So there's The Helper, this firm Murray Smith, we just had their website, helping communities prosper. You've got Populous, designing the places where people are drawn together. So they're the connector archetype. EYP is the stage, right? So they're an architecture firm that's heavily into doing primary research to inform research-based design. And so they tap in and they do a lot of really great studies on how people learn and utilize those studies and share them wildly across the entire industry. So it's further reinforcing that sage archetype. All right, so next we're going to talk about message. These are your language, the statements that you use. Maybe it's a tagline or sort of the voice of your firm that allows you to differentiate and to stand out. So Volcom has tried to sort of position themselves as this rebel. They have this tagline, embrace the strange. They're trying to be, anti-establishment, sort of the archetypal example of surfing. So, just by flipping this image, they're embracing the strange. So again, here we're talking about messaging as a way to do that. So we'll start with surfing, and then eventually we'll move into AEC. So Arab talks about shaping a better world, which is a nice, I think very noble. The thing that strikes me the best here is this line about being an independent firm. So Arab is a 14,000 person firm, but they really sort of take pride in not being part of a giant conglomerate, right? They're not part of AECOM. They're independent designers, engineers, and planners working across all different industries. One of the things we did for our client Murray Smith is when we helped them develop their core values, sort of unofficially, they came up with this internal idea that they perceive themselves as craft engineers. They're about 150 people, sort of not too small, not too big, just the right size. They're located in the Pacific Northwest. So we're like, okay, you're craft engineers. Let's take craft brewing, map those two things together, and we'll come up with these faux beer brands to help communicate what your each core value is. So one of their core values is passion, one is fun, so we come up with fun amber, and you flip it over, and it describes what that means to the particular firm. We letterpress these, and you see them. I go into their office, and they're strewn about on every conference table. And so I think it's really critical, if you're going to take the time to create core values, you have to come up with sort of some manifestation of those core values that helps reinforce what they're all about. You've got to make it fun. You can't just send it out in an email. You've got to really sort of take that on in a big way. So this messaging has been super effective. They take these to recruiting fairs, and super proud, a little plug for the SMPS Marketing Communication Awards, which are due, I think, at the end of March. Is that right? We were fortunate to win the award for Best Recruiting Print Piece last year for this particular campaign. So you can also do things like video, right? So I love the fact that Clark has identified different ambassadors, that each video is a different person talking about one aspect of their core values as a way to message to their audience what they stand for. For Murray Smith, we also utilize this technique. There's this real popular book right now called Traction by Gino Wickman. Anybody read that or familiar with it? Yeah. And he is a proponent of this idea of 3 uniques, right? So sometimes it's hard to come up with one unique thing about your firm that you can lay all your cards on, but he recommends sort of coming up with 3 unique things. And the idea is that individually, maybe these one things aren't unique, right? So somebody else might be just the right size, but the whole idea is that taken collectively, all 3 things, when brought together, are in fact unique. And so the cool thing with them is that we created 3 different business cards for everybody. And so let's say hypothetically you're in a situation where you're talking to somebody, a prospective client, and that client is complaining to you, you work for Murray Smith, like, hey, we're working with this company right now, but they're so big and they just don't care, and there isn't that sense of engagement and ownership. And so guess which card you're going to give to that prospective employee? Yeah, just the right size. And so it becomes a sort of fun game for the employees to give out the appropriate card, matching the situation they're in. So that's a great example of how messaging can help reinforce what your firm is all about. You can probably imagine what Fanning Howley specializes in. You can say it. Yeah, education. And it's reinforced again when you get to meet their people. They're all champions for education. LMN has done this great program. Well, they do a lot of great things, but I love this sort of candid, approachable talk, copy and messaging that, in full disclosure, they're an office of geeks. And I just think that's really charming. Selling, craftspeople building Seattle, client of ours, the KAA, 30 years of California contemporary architecture. So bam, when you start to combine messaging with image, you get this very nice 1 plus 1 equals 3 cumulative effect that can be super powerful. So yeah, if you have a brand standards guide, a lot of it's going to be dedicated. The whole right half is all visual. And I'm focusing here on the left half, which is all more verbal. And so I think in your brand standards guide, you should probably have something about where the firm came from, your heritage. You might have a positioning statement, or in this case, they call it an elevator speech. And I love the fact that they've got a 250 version, 250-word version, 150-word version, depending on different word count scenarios where you can put that. They give advice on voice and tone, how to talk about the firm. And I think we can all sort of take something great from this. This is actually this is the Toastmasters brand manual, but I think it's so good, and it's supported my point about how important messaging is. All right, so the final part we're going to talk about is experience design. These are events, these are rituals, these are moments of distinction where you can create an experience for a prospective employee, for a prospective client, that can endear your firm to that person, hopefully forever. So the surf industry has done a fantastic job with surf contests in terms of creating events or creating experiences for their target audience. And so Hurley is sponsoring this event called the Surf Ranch Pro. And I'm going to show you a video of this Surf Ranch Pro. And I want you to pay particular attention and think about something that's a little bit unique about this event. And then afterward, I'll ask you what that is. So watch this video and tell me what you think is unique about this particular scenario.
Well, it's not considered one of his strong points, but this certainly is. Right-handers, this size of wave, suit him down to the ground.
So explosive. Even in transition, this guy really puts it on the line, and he's going to throw everything into this section. Nice reverse, straight into another hawking turn to set up the barrel. And he tucks in, looking pretty comfortable. Wants to be very careful not to slip up now, so keeps that foot in a more regular position. Remember, on his first wave, let the front foot drift forward, and having a bit of fun with it now. Throws an alley-oop. That's 2 airs already, and he's only halfway down the line. Has more room to grow as he hammers away at this one. Now looking to line something up big on the inside. Finds a bit of cover. Wants the end section though. Throws the alley. He's going to stick it. 3 aerials, 1 wave, and a big tail side to finish. He's not done yet. What a performance from Toledo. Major risk on the outside, high risk through the middle section, and finish with a wobber.
Well, guaranteed one.
All right, so what was unique about that thing, or the wave? Yeah, that wave is in Lemoore, California, hundreds of miles from the coast. It's an old water skiing pool that Kelly Slater and his company purchased about 10 years ago, and have been doing we're doing like this sort of clandestine research to create the most incredible artificial wave on the planet. And they totally succeeded, I think, beyond anybody's measure. And so this is a complete game changer for the surfing industry. Now you have this opportunity to create waves literally anywhere on the planet, and you're not limited by the sort of limited supply of waves. And so, I think it's a kind of an exciting potential opportunity for our industry, in that if you're an engineer, if you have anything to do with hydrodynamics or aquatics or anything in this space, a lot of us work in water, it might be a great opportunity to start to look into, because it's only going to get bigger, and this one sort of set a pretty high bar, but I'm sure we can go even higher. So it's a pretty cool scenario. Anyway, the idea is about creating an event, right? Creating an experience. Not too far from here on the North Shore, every year is the Pipe